How are you guys all doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Mardiege. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, and it's been going nuts in New York recently in terms of sports. You know, we had the game last night between the Bills and the Jets. The Yankees and the Mets are in the LCSs for their series as well. And just this morning, a lot more news broke over the New York Jets regarding Davante Adams being traded there, Haason Reddick reportedly being given permission to seek a trade elsewhere. Everything just went off today in New York, and we're going to go over it in today's episode. But also not only that, talking about New York, the state of New York, you know, Buffalo also traded for Amari Cooper. That happened today. We're not going to get into that today, but we're going to explain that all and give my reaction to that tomorrow on tomorrow's show. But in today's episode, it's going to be mostly focused on the Jets, talking about their game last night and what we took away from that. The obvious Davante Adams trade now to join Aaron Rodgers with the Jets, and Haason Reddick also being given permission to seek a trade and where he could end up, and also what does that say about the Jets as well. A lot more to come on today's show. Make sure to stick around for that. And before we jump into the first segment, reminder to you guys, if you guys want to be involved in the discussions, want to share your thoughts, questions, or share any opinions you'd want to do in these live shows, there's an easy way to go about it now just by using the new Super Chat feature available to you guys, just by clicking the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. This way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel, and we rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. Don't hesitate to drop anything you'd like to say in the chat, again, by just clicking the $ at the bottom of the chat box to use the new Super Chat feature and get involved with our show. But with that out of the way now, we can start talking about the game just last night, obviously. Because there's so much news to get to, we got to start with that one, right? Obviously, just because it's the last game of Week 6. So there was a lot to take away from it, honestly. You know, last night on Monday Night Football, we saw the Bills execute better than the New York Jets, in my opinion. That led them to a 23-20 win over the Jets at MetLife Stadium. The Bills stop a 2-game losing streak to firmly now sit at top of the AFC East at 4-2. And then also the Jets now lose their third straight game to only be a game ahead now of the New England Patriots for last place. So they are now 2-4, while the Patriots are still 1-5. And you know, that difference in record can't be possible, right, for the Jets, right? You're talking about Super Bowl aspirations. To be that close to the Patriots at any point this season other than Week 1 is a good indicator to show that you're not going in the right direction, obviously. No shade to the Patriots, but it's two completely different situations, right? So that's where the Jets are right now. After their loss last night, everything sort of became very, very cold. I feel like after that game, everything was very serious, everything was very dull, and you knew the importance of that game, and more so than not, it felt like the Jets let that one slip away, more so than the Bills went out there and dominated them or something like that. But in this game, we saw the debut of interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich and the new play caller on the offensive side of the ball for the Jets, Todd Downing, and I thought both of them did a very good job to pass their first test last night in terms of the performances that we saw from this offense, mainly for the New York Jets, right? If you look at the numbers and the top performers, Aaron Rodgers had more of an Aaron Rodgers-like game. He was 23 of 35, almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Also, Breece Hall, the biggest news for this Jets team to kind of carry on going forward, hopefully, is that he had 18 carries for 113 yards. And the last couple of games for Breece Hall, before this, he had 23 yards, 4 yards, and 54 yards before that. So very much a drastic change. Credit to Todd Downing, obviously. So that's a huge win for the Jets in that regard. And you know, passing-wise also, Allen Lazard had a big game, 114 yards for a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, another touchdown, 107 yards as well. And, then you have Breece Hall there right after those guys. But still, you know, you could have won even with two of those guys performing very well. And it's unfortunate for them to not have come away with a win at home, especially. Also, then the other side of the things, Buffalo Bills, they had a more efficient game, I would say. Josh Allen only throwing the ball 25 times, completing 19 of them for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their rushing game, even though James Cook, I want to say, missed his first game of his career last night, which is remarkable. There was no James Cook, so no other guys had to step up, and boy, did they. Ray Davis had 20 carries for almost 100 yards, and Josh Allen scored the only rushing touchdown for them, while also in the passing game, they did enough with Ray Davis having the most yards with 55, Dalton Kincaid chipping in with 6 receptions, and it was enough. It was enough to get the job done, especially with their defense as well, coming up with some big plays down the stretch as well. But looking at how this game sort of played out here for the New York Jets and how it kind of got away from them. You look at their first drive in this game, and it pretty much set the table. It kind of foreshadowed what was to come later on in this game, because in their first drive, they had it going. The running game looked great. This offense was driving on this Bills defense, but unfortunately they failed to convert a third down, and they settled for a field goal. More of that to come, obviously, in this game. While the Bills, however, they sent their own message on their offensive side of the ball by scoring a touchdown on their first drive, and they only threw it one time throughout that whole drive, really sending a message to this New York Jets team that, yeah, our running back might be down, our starting running back might be down, we might be, trying to deal with a couple injuries, but we're still going to run the ball. And I think that's what the Bills do exceptionally well, playing off of that run game. And then you see efficient games like they had last night, regardless of who's in there. I think it showed a lot from this Bills team to how, what's the word I'm looking for? Just how they're able to just plug and play pieces. And I think that's a big indicator of how good this offense truly is. If it doesn't matter who the players are, if it's still effective, that's truly a sign of a good scheme, of good practice and execution. I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised with how well the Bills played on offense as well. Then, while they made the score 7-3, Aaron Rodgers responded with that great touchdown throw to Garrett Wilson, making the score 10-7 at that point. And what kind of created a little bit of separation in the first half was the fact that the Jets punted in back-to-back drives after they scored their touchdown, whereas the Bills responded with 2 straight touchdown drives to extend the lead to 20-10 at that point. And thankfully for the Jets, they converted another Hail Mary. I should say Aaron Rodgers converted another Hail Mary to try to snatch as much of the momentum back for them heading into halftime with that Hail Mary caught by Allen Lazard. It was an amazing play, obviously, again, by Rodgers to complete his 4th Hail Mary now, which is just insane, otherworldly, really. People say it's luck a lot of the times, but I think if you do it more than twice or 3 times even, you got to start taking luck out of it, and that's where Aaron Rodgers is. So, that's awesome to have. You're the Jets, obviously, right in your back pocket. But the second half is where I alluded to before, where settling a lot of times for the Jets really came back to bite them, because there was 3 missed field goals in the second half alone, 2 of them by the New York Jets, and the issue really started to come out to light was with the inefficiency that the Jets had on offense also, but also in the red zone, right? Once they get down there, they put together some nice drives, running the ball, and Todd Downing, his offense looking pretty well. But once you got down there, it really became a struggle, whether it be the penalties that wiped out touchdowns, like the one on Tyron Smith, or allowing too many sacks to put you behind the chains at that point. Also, just miscommunications also were a big thing. We saw that on that last drive with a pass intended to Mike Evans, but obviously it was off. So at that point, the Jets really couldn't get anything going from that point on, other than just maybe one other touchdown. But still, the Bills hit a field goal with about 3.5 minutes left, and that was pretty much the separation there that the Bills needed to hold on to that win. And obviously in the last drive, there was another holding call that the Jets, put themselves back a couple steps on offense, and Rodgers had to almost throw up a prayer, and it was intercepted by Teron Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, intended for Mike Will. And it was another crushing loss, obviously, for the Jets. It was disappointing for them because if you look at a big picture compared to last year where, the only thing missing was the quarterback, after 6 weeks last year, their record was better at 3-3, and they had scored the same amount of points, which, again, looking at it side by side, is a bad sign. So it's bad and good also because I feel like they got the result they wanted from changing the play caller, obviously, because the running game looked very good. And the coaching change, played out as well as it did. But to me, the biggest takeaway I take from this Jets team is that the actual players, I feel like, have to take more accountability or have to take more of the blame when it comes to the shortcomings of this team, right? Robert Saleh's not there anymore to scapegoat him. Nathaniel Hackett isn't calling the plays anymore to put the blame on him. And now yesterday we still saw some of the same, unprofessional mistakes with the amount of penalties. Of course, some of those were on the refs, I think, doing a little bit too much. But still, there was still a lot of sacks, too much for my liking on Aaron Rodgers. The holding calls really set everything back. And on defense, they didn't start off very well. And it created that separation that the Bills needed ultimately to win this game. So I think now, with these changes now, and obviously we're going to talk about the Davante Adams trade, this Jets team is starting to run out of excuses now where the only way you could look at it is the players themselves, right, and how much blame they take in. And maybe Aaron Rodgers specifically as well. That's for you guys to decide. But it got better in terms of performance, but obviously you need the win now. And sitting at 2-4 for this Jets team is where we get our next segment that we're going to talk about, right? They fully reached the point where, everything was thrown out the window, caution was out the window, and they went out and finalized the trade for Davante Adams, right? Sitting at 2-4, nothing else matters but wins now, evidently, for the New York Jets. So they traded for Davante Adams, and we're going to talk about it. The news broke this morning, so I'll provide you guys all the information and my thoughts on it coming up in this next segment. We'll be right back after this break.